to you.
Good morning, Marcus. Now, we're going to start off with the Washington Post and a blog on their website this morning comparing the biography or the autobiography or the memoirs of George Bush with those of Justin Bieber.
This is the Canadian pop sensation,
yes,
as
indeed.
I described him before.
Exactly.
He's 16, right?
He's 16 years old. He's Canadian. I think we have a photo of him here. There he is with his Lego man helmet hair. And so what they're basically saying here is you might think they're very different. One is a 64-year-old former US president. The other is a 16-year-old pop star. But both men have a lot in common. They have last names that end in B. And the two autobiographies that they have released, or the two memoirs, have fundamental concerns about making mistakes, about being competent to drive, and growing up in a family with other human beings. So that's how they pointed out. Now, there is actually a quiz, Marcus. So I've prepared a few questions for you to see if you can tell.
Ready.
Right.
Shoot.
So this is one line from one of the autobiographies. The crowd exploded. It was a release of energy I'd never felt before. Justin Bieber or George W. Bush?
George W. Bush.
Well done. Have you read both? This is the question. I like when people ask me about my religion because I love God and I don't want to miss an opportunity to share that.
That sounds a bit teenagerish. I'll go for Justin Bieber.
God, I really think you might have read both of these books.
I glanced through them yesterday. Should I just say that?
Mistakes happen all the time, but that's just life. Would this perhaps be George W. Bush expressing regret for some of the mistakes over
Maybe
8 years?
That's from both of the books. Who knows?
Well, it's actually Justin Bieber. It's Justin Bieber. And so there's various other ones like that. And one final one. I really like girls, 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 girls. Is that George W. Bush or Justin Bieber?
I'm guessing that would be Justin Bieber, but maybe it's a trick question.
I was actually hoping you'd get all the other ones wrong and that one right, but that is Justin Bieber. So it's a pretty fun kind of look at the two books and the surprising similarities between the two of them. Now, we'll move on to The Guardian, where Jonathan Friedland is saying this bid to rehabilitate Bush must be defeated. He left a trail of destruction. And I'll just read the first paragraph of that article. For Tony Blair, it was sex with Sherry. For George W. Bush, it was a turd from his pet dog, Barney. Now, these are two moments in Tony Blair's recently released autobiography, and now George Bush's sort of light, funny moments about their private lives, which are an attempt, according to Jonathan Friedland, to endear them to the public and to, to seek absolution by autobiography.
Yeah.
And he goes on to say that, yes, while it's charming to learn about Barney out for his morning stroll, leaving a mess on the neighbour's lawn, that's nothing next to the mess his master left for the world, and we should let no one forget it.
Well, there have already been a lot of complaints that George W. Bush really doesn't say sorry in this book in any way, shape or form. He doesn't really seem to have all that many regrets.
Right, and in fact there's a cartoon in The Guardian which illustrates that perfectly. It shows George W. Bush with kind of devil's horns coming out of his head, looking in the mirror and seeing a sort of an angelic reflection looking back at him. So I think, people would perhaps prefer to hear I'm sorry for my mistakes than talking about Barney out for his morning stroll. Now, we'll move on to a controversy that is taking Germany by storm at the moment. This is in Die Welt. Now, it's a feminism debate that has degenerated into personal trouble. Now, that mightn't sound very interesting, but the details are basically there's a very young families minister in Germany, and she's just 33 years old. Her name is Christina Schroeder. Now, in an interview on Monday on Der Spiegel, with Der Spiegel, she hit out at feminists, saying that the feminist era was effectively kind of passé, and she rejected the idea that the feminist argument that rejected heterosexual relations in favour of homosexuality as a solution for the disadvantages of women. So she was speaking about, I suppose, how some feminists in the past had said that women in a heterosexual relationship are subjugated. Therefore, the only, I suppose, solution, as some saw it, was to kind of get out of heterosexual relationships.
Many would agree with her that that's a pretty radical view, right?
Exactly. So she was saying that this is passé. Now, the country's chief feminist, the most, I suppose, well-known feminist in the country, is pictured here on the left. Her name is Alice Schwarzer. Now, she hit back. She saw herself as being personally targeted by this interview in Der Spiegel. And she hit back saying that she was an incompetent minister, that as late as the 1970s, a woman still needed written permission from her husband to ask for a job. And she said without the feminist movement, Schroeder would not be a minister today. So this has kind of exploded into a big public debate in Germany. It was just a little interview that I suppose elicited a response from this well-known feminist in Germany, and now it's become a big public debate. So there you go, they're hitting back and forth at each other.
That's what happens quite often, doesn't it?
I suppose back and forth in the media and people replying to each other.
Let's move on now to another story.
Exactly. This is on the front page of The Independent. Cameron Cameron confronts the biggest society. Now, this, of course, is a reference to his recent reforms known as the Big Society, and it's because he is in China. And unlike, I suppose, Hu Jintao's visit to France last week, where human rights was very much off the agenda, not discussed at all, it looks like David Cameron is going to mention several issues that China would rather not be mentioned today, including the imprisoned Nobel Peace Laureate Liu Xiaobo, democratic elections, and things like that. So I suppose that's one to keep an eye on. Now, I'll just finish with a photo, Marcus, in The Guardian. This is a photo that won the National Portrait Gallery in London's Photographic Portrait Award. I think it's an incredible shot. It's taken in Alabama. It's a 14-year-old girl, Josie Slaughter, perhaps appropriately named because she has an animal, a buck that she had hunted and killed earlier that day. And I think it's incredible, the lighting in it especially, because the hair colour, the colour of the buck and the colour of the horse are almost the same.
Huntress with buck. It sounds like a medieval painting.
Exactly, but it's a contemporary photograph.
All right, thanks very much, James Coonan, for talking us through the international newspapers today. You're watching France 24.